We'll start right there in the second paragraph of the Maimer, of Lamed Zayin. Now, thus, once we've explained the Inyan of B'Tzalmeinu, how it pertains to Torah, that although there is a form, but that form is not a limiting factor, and it is not something which is external, but it is actually the etzem itself in that form. So now, to understand the principle of Tzalmeinu, that is in a reference to Neshomis, that Neshomis are also B'Tzalmeinu. Hine Yodua, to understand it, is as follows. Hine Yodua, for it is known, the Neshomis Mushroshim B'Bchinas Atzmus Ein Soy Baru, that the Neshomis are rooted in the Bechina of Atzmus Ein Sof. So just to translate these words, which will be elaborated on, we already discussed many times the principle of Mushroshim, of Shoirish, and we already discussed also the union from B'Bchinas Atzmus Ein Sof. Mushrosh means not only something where it's coming from, but that actually that is, and that is its essence. Like we pointed out in the mashal of the tree growing out of the ground, the whole principle of growing is really not a tree element; it's part of the ground. The ground was given the command and the capability and the significance of producing trees. A tree is representative not of itself, but representative of the ground, of the koyach hatzomeach sheboretz. And bebchinas atzmus ein sof. Again, the word bebchina. Bechina means that which tests for. If you put up a house and you dig foundation into the ground, the house is also standing on the ground. But it's not the bebchinas etzem ha'oretz. The earth is a foundation that you use to hold the house. Not to say that it is the earth that gave you the idea to build a house. And that this is where it originates from. Bechina means everything comes from Atzmus Ein Sof. Everything. Like the Rambam says, Yesod HaYesod Hamud HaChochmas, the foundation of all foundations, and the pillar of wisdom. If we are to know things from a wisdom perspective, you have to know one thing, that there's a first being. Everything comes from the first being. But not everything is represented bechina of the first being. There are the primary things, and then there are secondary things. Neshamis are bechina, mushash bechina atzmus ein sof. As deep as you will go in atzmus ein sof, there are things which are, so these are the koyach, the capability of a lakus and so forth, and then there is the essence. What is a lakus? And that is when the neshamis are rooted. This is just an introduction to this thing. To elaborate on this and to understand what are the implications in this. And how is it? Neshamis are rooted in Bebchinas Atzmos Ein Sof. Here eksiv, it is written, Bonim Atem Lahavaya Lekech, that you, Shomesh Yisrael, are children, are sons, Havaya Lekech. What is the significance of that statement? Why, in what way are Neshomis compared to sons? Dikmei haben, just as a son, Shorshei me'atzmus me'ach ho'av. He is rooted in the atzmus me'ach ho'av, in the essence of the moyach of the father. Kmoikein haneshomes, likewise the neshomes, shorsho me'atzmus chochmosa yizborich. They are rooted in the atzmus of the chochmah, of the chochmah shalamayim. Now again, as we have already learned, that chochmah, this is the memutza, this is the first recipient, the first place where the esim is nizgala. So therefore everything is mchom. But then there is inyan for atzmus chochmah. What does it mean, atzmus chochmos?
Atzmus moyach ha'av. Why do we have to say moyach ha'av? Why don't we say some atzmus of the neshama of the av, or the atzmus ha'av? Okay.
You're standing on the road.
Okay.
Hine yodua, for it is known ha'hefresh bein neshomes and malachim. The difference between neshomes and malachim. The neshomes nimshochim miyuchud zun. Neshomes nimshach, they are drawn from and they come as a result of yichud zun. Yichud zun, the zun means zo and malchus essentially, which is a yichud at the spheres at the midas level. Hanikro zivu gufni, that is described as a zivu gufni, a physical union. The hamalachim, and the malachim, hey mi yichud avo. The malachim, they are coming from the yichud avo, from the union of avo avoim, which is chochmah and bina. Hanikro zivug ruchni, which is called zivug ruchni, a spiritual union. Bechina zivug nishiki, what's made a spiritual union? Zivug nishiki. A zivug, a union that is expressed in a shikin, in a kiss, which is, there is now no actual, a tangible union there. Shehuinin is dabkus rucho beruch, which is which is called is dabkus, the union, the connection, rucho berucho, spirit with spirit. So all this will be discussed and so forth. This is just to lead us into this topic. So the neshomes are from zivug zun, which is zivug gufni, and malachim and zivug avo, which is zivug ruchni. I'm not going to translate anymore. Okay. Come on, you were here for 10 years.
Not really.
7 years. Come on. Join. Zivug means join.
No, I was. Zivug gufni and zivug ruchni, but I just didn't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Zivug gufni means physical zivug, and ruchni means spiritual.
Yeah. Which corresponds to nothing.
Huh?
Which corresponds to angels. Malachim.
Zivug Ruchni, Malachim come from Zivug Ruchni, and Neshamas come from Zivug Gufni.
Okay, that's what I'm doing.
Next time I'm going to have you read, and I'll just explain.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Olochoira. Now it would appear at first glance that Harezivug Ruchni hu lemailo yesem zivug gufni. That the Ruchni Zikki joining, is a higher level than zivug gufni, than physical joining. Mikol mokem, and yet still, mal as haneshomes gdela yesem mehamalochim. The mal of the neshomes is greater than malachim, kimeida, as we know that malachim, that neshomes are superior to malachim. So, how is it that neshomes come from zivug gufni, which is a lower level of zivug, and malachim come from a higher level of zivug? But the principle in this is this. Lefi, that this result is due to the fact, because shehashefa hapnimius v'ha'atzmius, that the internal and the essential shefa, bo b'bchina zivug gufni dafka, comes in the form of zivug gufni dafka, only through zivug gufni. Masha came b'zivug ruchni, whereas in the case of zivug ruchni, of a spiritual zivug, shehu b'chinas hashpah chitzenius levat. Zivug ruchni is hashpah chitzenius, is only an external hashpah. I want to translate the idea here. Hashpah pnimis v'yatzmis, hashpah chitzenis levad. In principle, the difference between hashpah chitzenis and hashpah pnimis v'yatzmis is as follows. Chitzenis means that aspect that is meant to be transmitted, is meant to be given, it's meant to be expressed. This means chitzenis. Pnimis v'yatzmis means the source, the source from where the hashpah comes from. What is the essence? So hashpah ruchnis gives of the ruchnis, but what is the ruchnis? Ruchnis means this which I can express, like I can express in words. I can tell you what I think. I cannot give you my thought itself. I can tell you what I think. I can talk about it. That's what hashpah ruchnis. Gufni, the etzem inen that I myself am, that's what I give you. That's mean hashpah gufnis. It's a completely different hashpah. In truth, the term hashpah is even really a misnomer. It's just a lack for a better word, because like the halacha is that the son and father are one entity. The son, say hashpah from the father. No, it's one entity. In halacha, the son, when the generation changes, it's not a change at all. It's the same reality. In Yerusha, for example, in inheritance, it's not considered that there was a change of hand. It's one and the same thing, because it is the same thing, the same entity. Das meint hashpah. And this is hashpah chitzenis. Hashpah chitzenis means a hashpah of that which is meant to be for hashpah, meant for external purposes. The mashal bazeh, the mashal for this yodua, is well known. The zivug ruchni, that what, for example, it would be a zivug ruchni, huk me hashpah haseichel me hameyach. It is like the hashpah of seichel. It's like seichel flowing from the moyach. And we will attend now to the union from moyach and seichel in a moment. This is zivug ruchni. Hashpah haseichel min hameyach. The hamoshal, the zivug gufni. And what is a moshal for zivug gufni? Hu hamshachas hatipa mehameach. This is the actual birth process, where there is a tipa, there is an actual part, an element from the moyach that comes forth. We'll discuss briefly the senior for hashpah haseichel me hamoyach, so we'll understand the terminology. The cha'oira, the seichel is nimshach from seichel. Hashpah haseichel. It's not from the moyach, because the mashpia has seichel himself. And it is from his seichel that he is mashpia seichel. Why did it say that it's hashpah seichel me hamoyach? The moyach is what's called the brain. This is actually the housing for the seichel, the physical housing for the seichel.
I mean, the brain. Moyach is the physical brain in the skull.
Yeah.
Okay.
So why we say the hashpah haseichel me hamoyach? The principle is like this. We'll take the simplest illustration that we have, right? 1 on 1 is 2. Now, when somebody teaches us 1 on 1 is 2, is he teaching it to him because he already knows that 1 on 1 is 2? Is he picking it up from a preconceived idea? Or is he now recognizing that 1 1 is 2? In other words, this seichel that he is teaching him is being created on the fly from the moyach.
From the teacher's moyach to the student's moyach.
Even if you already thought of this before.
Even you already thought of it before.
On the moment, he has to be
right. If he is not aware of the reality, of the moyach reality of the seichel, he's not teaching him. He's just repeating. You can read from the book.
Why do we call it a moyach reality? Okay, promise not okay.
The nefesh, the koychet nefesh, such as seichel, chochmah, and so forth. These are a reality. This is a reality on the nefesh level. This is not something that we are privy to, that we know. The way it is in the nefesh. It's very high madrigas and so forth, but in Bichlal, this is not what we know. The nefesh is mislabish in the guf order, mislabish in the moyach. Now, what is the seichel? At is it translated? It's translated in the moyach. The moyach receives chayes from the nefesh. Like the Rambam says, we know that there's a first being. How do we know there's a first being? Did we do research? How do we know there's a first being? We know there's a first being due to the fact that the nefesh was mislabish in the moyach, and there is a sense in the moyach of a fundamental reality. Fundamental reality is only a first being. It's not a precarious thing. There's a first being. There's a real presence. This is what's felt in the moyach as a result of the slapshas and nefesh in the guf.
This is what's what in moyach?
That's the result of the slapshas and nefesh in the guf. This is what's sense in the moyach. This is the chochmah.
This is the receiving of chayes from the nefesh.
This is the chochmah. There is, like I said, chochmah means that there is such a thing as a truth. There is no knowledge of what the truth is about. It's just that I'm for real. This is the moyach. This is where a person becomes a human being. When he then constructs seichel, is a derivative of that reality. Why is 1 and 1 2? Because there is a truth, there's a reality. All I'm doing is figuring out what this reality is under these circumstances. This is the seichel as a derivative, as coming from the moyach. And I'll take a moment, as I always do, to contrast this with the stupidity that's going on in the world, where they don't know that 1 and 1 is 2. It is something which is just being superimposed on you. There is no seichel involved at all. You're talking about dead individuals. They don't know anything. If it hits you, then it's like a dog. When a dog walks into a wall, it hurts, so he knows that he shouldn't walk over there. There is this seichel, there's a chochmat mislabish in the mayach. And that is the primary presence of the human being. Therefore, he knows that there is such thing as a truth, as a Motzei Rishon. Therefore, when you ask him how much is 1 and 1, he says, well, 1 and 1 is 2.
Sounds, from this explanation, it sounds almost like this Leida Sheyesh on Motzei Rishon is an automatic thing.
Leida Rishon is an automatic thing. There are 2 steps in this. There's the initial knowledge and then knowing it, consciously knowing it. Consciously knowing it is something that you have to focus into what you deep down know.
But the Moyach has this
The
additional knowledge.
has this knowledge to begin with. Otherwise, where is it getting? So when the seichel is hashpos haseichel mehamoyach. The moyach is what provides the mashpia, the sense of reality of what he is teaching. And then he translates it in a manner that he can tell the mushpa, here is how it is apis seichel. He's not giving him moyach, he's giving him seichel. The mushpa himself then senses this seichel in his own moyach. And eventually that becomes his own seichel. What does it mean becomes his own seichel? That ultimately he understands it the same way as the mashpia understood it. Not because the mashpia taught it to him. He doesn't just store a piece of information. That's not the real knowledge. He verifies it through his own life element, his own mayach. Yes, indeed, this is how it is. Right, so this is going to continue further. So this is what the Rebbe says right on in the beginning. There's a difference between hashpah and haseichel me hamoyach. Even though it's a real hashpah, it comes from the moyach. It comes from the reality of the mashpia. He's not giving him, taking something out of his pocket.
He's lighting a candle.
He senses he has the truth of this in the moyach. And then he translates it, he brings it out as a hashpah, in a seichel form. This is a famous word that we always say, a kop kemen ishtagufshta. Teaching does not put a head on somebody else's shoulder. But it gives him the opportunity to sense the seichel in his own moyach. This is why then it is important for him to be misboided and to reflect on what he learned and to see, yes, indeed, it touches his own moyach. It touches his own reality. And this will be it for this morning. Have a good day.
There's a part in the book, 1984, where they're torturing this rebellious hero, and they say, and the torturer shows him his hand. He says, how much is 2 and 2? And the guy says 4. He says,